Welcome to the next segment of our International Culinary Hour. We are going to do Spain today. The first one we did was Italy and then Greece. So this will be kind of like the last area in Southern Europe that I'm going to touch upon before we go somewhere else. Quite similarly, Southern European countries will have, I mentioned before on a couple other episodes, that the major meal, particularly in Europe, is eaten at night. Very temperate climate, very hot in the day. So typically going to eat very light for lunch, take a break in their work day. Fruits, nuts, things like that for lunch, but by far the major meal at night, at least from like 9, 10 o'clock at night, when the sun goes down and the temperature is much cooler. A couple of facts about Spain, if you want to check your fact sheet here. I think it's like the first page you might have it. There's 3 peninsulas in Southern Europe: Iberian, Italian, and Balkan. Italian and Balkan is Italy and Greece for the most part. Spain shares the Iberian Peninsula with Portugal. On the north, it's got the Pyrenees Mountains, so it's very mountainous in the northern region. Mediterranean Sea is on the east, the Strait of Gibraltar is to the south, Atlantic on the west, and the Bay of Biscay to the northwest. The Strait of Gibraltar is very key because at one part in southern Spain, it's only 8 miles away from where the African Moors had come and occupied Spain for about 800 years. So the Greeks had been there for a while, Romans under occupation too, and the Celts too for a while. But by far the Moors have the most of their influence in that country because they had been there for about 800 years. That would be Arabian Moors. They would give you like things like almonds, fruits, nuts, spices, cumin, saffron, which we're using today. From the Greeks, they would have gotten the olives and the olive oil, wine production. And the Celts, they were big on like fish pies, meat pies, things like that in the interior regions where they grow a lot of animals and stuff like that. And the East Coast, on the whole coast, surrounded by sea, obviously a lot of seafood in the diet as well too. Spain has always been a much sought out country throughout history. We covered a little bit. Greeks settled in the 8th century BC. Celts occupied interior regions. Spain was also under Roman domination, and the Moors, Arabs from North Africa, crossed Gibraltar and occupied Spain for nearly 800 years. From Americas, you don't get things till the 1520s. Under exploration, they brought back vanilla, chocolate, things of that nature. And potatoes. Spain got potatoes before Ireland did, believe it or not. So, traditions rely on abundance of locally grown vegetables and fruits, as well as meats and poultry, with seafood and fish forming one of the major pillars in Spain's gastronomy due to its large coastline. Chorizo sausage, which we're using today, and Serrano hams are made in large quantities. Other popular foods are eggs, cheeses, beans, rice, nuts, especially almonds, bread, olive oil, garlic, wines, sherry, and sangria. Best known national dish is paella, said to have originated in Valencia, eastern province in the Mediterranean. And gazpacho is a cold tomato soup, comes from Andalusia in southern Spain. We'll be making both of those today. The first one to cover is gazpacho. I have the recipes on the second and the third handouts. This is a very easy soup. This, in addition to the paella we're making today, is very regional. They're going to go into their garden and pick whatever they have for the most part. But it obviously has like olive oil. It's going to have like an acid, whether it be vinegar, tomato, garlic. I particularly like using olives in mine, both green and Kalamata, which has a Greek influence, Spanish influence, olive production. Peppers, anything fresh from the garden, basically go into the soup. It's basically tomato-based soup. So first and foremost, you're going to start with tomatoes. What I have here is the equivalent of about 10 seeded tomatoes with their juice. That's a start. Those like season as you go. A little salt and pepper. This particular one, we got some red pepper and black pepper. Now you don't have to really care about what it looks like because it'll be being pulverized in the blender anyway. So as long as it's big chunks. Sometimes I get rid of that white membrane on the inside. That goes in. I like to progressively pulse it as you go along, because sometimes it'll clog up the blades. So. First is real easy. About a half a head of celery. Use the leaves too. They have a lot of flavor. Actually good in salad. Sometimes you throw them out for stocks, but if they're young enough and tender enough in the interior, the head of that celery, a lot of nice flavor to that, you know, intense celery flavor. About half a bunch of parsley. Equivalent of about 3 ounces of Spanish olives and Kalamata olives. Yeah. And about half a head of garlic cloves. You're gonna find garlic in basically everything. I'm gonna finish with about half a cup of olive oil in this. And about 3 ounces, 2 to 3 ounces of red wine vinegar for acid. Some people like the gazpacho chunky. I prefer it more mine, you know. And that's it. Pretty much done. What I did, I made a batch. Because the vegetables are very raw, it's wise to create, I made this yesterday, have it sit in your refrigerator 1 to 2 days so the flavors kind of marry, mellow out a little bit. I'm add a little bit of this into this batch for some bite. Be good. Kelly, come on, help me portion this out. I'm gonna drink it out of the cup. What you're looking for basically is a definitely garlic, tomato flavor, touch of olives, mostly tomato.
Fantastic.
That's tastes right? All right,
yes.
perfect.
Oh yeah.
The next stage of the game is going to be paella. This is a national dish. I'm going to talk a little bit about long grain and short grain rices. I'm going to pass it around for people to look at. One cup that you can look at is a whiter rice, very small, round looking. Other one is elongated rice. The difference is things like arborio rices for risotto and things for the paella you can use a short grain rice. Basically what that means is the long grain rice versus the short one, you're going to see the difference. The long grain rice obviously has it's a starch called amylose. It's a long strain and it does not gelatinize when you cook it. The other one has amylopectin, which is a branch starch. So as soon as it gets to heat, you get a lot of starch from that. As soon as it hits the temperature, you get like a gelatin flavor to it. That's why risotto is very creamy. This particular dish, we're going to use that. You're going to see in the market too things like converted rice in the store. That means they pre-steam it. A lot of times you get to remove the hull and the bran and things like that, but major difference here between long and short grain is the starch content. So we're looking for a heavy starch rice. Now the long grain rice, you're gonna make a peel off, typically about 3 parts liquid to 1 part rice, but because the short grain has so much starch in it, you need about 4 parts water or solution for the grain of rice. It takes a little longer to cook too, but it ends up with a very creamy texture. Almost if you had risotto before, it almost tastes like there's cream in it when there's not really cream in it. It's all that constant stirring and the starch agitation, gelatinization of that starch that happens. Now I don't have typically use a paella is the name of the pan, paella pan, much bigger than this. Looks like a saute pan, but this will do for our purposes. What you're gonna do in a saute. I covered this once before. The whole idea of sauteing, convolution in this pan, is you want to eliminate moisture. So anywhere where that liquid level is, the pan is always bigger. So the solution will not loop around and come back into your pan. You want to concentrate the flavor. The only way to do that is eliminate water. Because water is flavorless, colorless, but it's necessary for cooking. But when you want to concentrate flavors, you have to eliminate that. And that's why this pan was developed. Paella pan is kind of the same way, except it's flatter and much bigger than this. I'm going to show you up here. I have the four meats we're going to use today, and the paella is going to be a chorizo sausage. This is a Spanish sausage, pork-based, a lot of paprika, garlic in it, a little hot pepper. I didn't put too much in. I have 16, 20 shrimps. Size grading means I get 16 to 20 of these for every pound. Your U10s, U15s means you get 10 or 15 per pound. These are 21, 16 per pound, so get them. Now the mussels. You're going to see too that I'll pass one of these around. If you look on the side of the mussel here, the interior portion, the flatter side, you'll see kind of like some cilia that developed by the mussels. What happens is these are filter feeders in the water. Basically, they sit there and they wait for the food to come in. They siphon the food as it comes out. So what they do is they attach in colonies. So the whole idea is when you have to debeard a mussel, you got to pull that out because this is inedible. Okay.
Is it only on the exterior, or does it go inside?
It goes a little bit. For the most part, you hope the mussel gives it up, but it doesn't always do that. So you have to do like a quick. You do like once you get it in your hand, do like a slit. See, it comes out a little bit more pull. Once it gets really taut, then you just snap it. Usually comes out. Usually you get most of that. This saute, we start with a little olive oil. Also, too, I like to get the shrimp in. I'm gonna tell you that's obviously it have that large intestine in there. You gotta get rid of. So when you take a shrimp, you start the head edge right here and go along the spine. I'm gonna break that shell. For this particular dish, I leave the tail piece on, easy to pick up and eat. The inside vein, it's basically just waste, you want to get rid of that. But this part here, never get rid of. Lobster, shrimp, I'm going to show you right now. A lot of the flavor is in this exoskeleton, this chitinous, a cholesterol-based exoskeleton. You're going to get a lot of flavor that just with a simple saute, another depth of flavor you're not going to get. So if you get your shrimp, you have the time to peel in the vein. It's just doing it, but use these in your sauce. Okay. So I'm going to start with the shells. You'll see they're turning like this nice pink color. They'll get spent when they turn like a really deep peach color. That's when you glaze with a little stock. That's what I'm looking for right now. So you see, most of the shellfish turn a different color. Once you get that point, a lot of the flavor's already rendered from that. So now we're having like a nice flavored oil with a touch of stock in it. I'll put that in the rice later on. Okay, first on the list will be your chicken. We use chicken thigh for this. Okay, once the chicken starts going, I'm going to add onion. Now for a dice of an onion, you can dice or slice an onion. When you want to dice it, which I typically want, remove this papery skin, but go through the root end, but leave that root end intact. I'll show you why. Once the outer layers are off, so that root end will serve its purpose. If I want to, for anything but onions, multi-layers right there when you're slicing and dicing, you really don't have to do much. But if I want to slice, I get rid of this with a D-cut. It goes like this, and when they cook, the heat alone is going to make your slices. Now for a dice, you want to keep that intact, because as you go down the line, if I got rid of that, when I make my slices across this way, they don't fall apart. So basically I'm using that root end to keep these slices here. Now I can just go down the line. And then you should dice that way. So that's once before too. Looking forward to that Maillard reaction, caramelization of the meat proteins. We did it with the lamb the last time. It works well with all meats. You want to develop those compounds in that meat for browning that you're not going to get by poaching or something like that. Now here you're looking for like a stage of translucency with onions. That means you can kind of start seeing through the onions. They give enough that opaque look to them. Okay, next thing would be the rice. Now the rice very starchy. The reason why I'm adding the rice in instead of the liquid, I want to have, as I said before, the rice is very starchy. So what happens is I want to coat each one of those grains of rice with oil for the most part to kind of keep as much form as I can, because you're actually toasting the outside of the starch grains. You're trying to maintain as much of a separateness as you can with the rice grains without getting them too mushy. So what I'm doing is toasting the outside of that. Once I get that nutty smell of the rice, then I add my liquid to stop the browning of the rice, so it will burn quickly. It doesn't take much. Now it's kind of safe to walk away for a little bit. Also in this dish is the peppers. The thing too, when you're cutting, good thing to practice at home. Like some guys go really quick. You never have to worry about cutting your finger. First of all, if you have a sharp knife, a dull knife is what's going to cut you, because you're going to skid off the surface of what you're cutting. That's why I always keep a sharp knife. But whenever you cut, get a flat end, whether it's a carrot, cut a little flat end to it, make it stable. Your index finger is always your lead finger. The back two fingers always hold the product, so you have to worry about that. So as long as I curve my knuckle and the blade always rests against that, I never have to worry about cutting myself. I move my finger back. These two always stay behind this one, and this one is always my guide finger. So I get used to, like, you have to go slow in the beginning. Feel like the knife like resting on your knuckle, and after a while I get that feeling where it's more fluid after a while. But for safety reasons, always get like, try to make a flat surface, but always use these 3 fingers. And then once you get like that guide finger going, you get used to cutting quick. At this point, I have Roma plum tomatoes in here. Use my hand. Just to break them up a little. This point is where I add my saffron. And Spanish paprika. For like 6, this portion is about for 6 that I'm making now in that recipe that you have. It's about like a good pinch of saffron with your fingers, and about like a half a teaspoon of paprika. The saffron I talked about too once before. Very expensive, about $50 an ounce on the market, because you're paying people to pick them by hand. It's the stamen of the crocus flower. So basically you're hiring people to go to each one of these flowers and pick out the stamens, each one by hand. So it's a very expensive commodity to have. But you really can't replicate its flavor. Very floral. You don't need that much of it. You can probably start to smell it now. It's ambient in the air. Typical saffron smell that you couldn't really get with anything else. Then I add my chorizo. I pre-cook my chorizo. I like doing that. I don't like, sometimes you have the raw chorizo, you can do that. I don't like it poached first of all. Second of all, I like the fat cap rising in my rice. I try to eliminate as much fat as I can. Here's that rendered shrimp butter. And at this point of the game, you would cover this, let it go for about 10 minutes. See what I have here. I'm kind of rushing this. This will work because it's kind of cooking down pretty fast. Once you're sure the chicken is done, shrimp is not going to take a couple minutes in this steamy environment, so you ladle that on top. Once it comes to a boil, then you just finish in the oven, for the most part. Now, in this particular recipe, it's kind of along the styles of Valencia, where it's said to have originated with the, except they like snails in theirs. I don't think many people want to try snails today, so I kind of substituted with different things if you like. Any questions?
At what point do you add the mussels?
The mussels, okay. After about 5 more minutes of this, I would add the mussels on top of this, and then finish it up for like 5, 6 minutes until they open up. There's another thing about mussels too. If you buy them, you always want to make sure, like this, well, he was slightly open. I tapped and he closed. So if you buy them and they're open, they're dead. If you cook them and they do not open, then they're dead. If they retain this after about 5 minutes of steaming, 6 minutes of steaming, then they're done. So you want to throw them out. Okay, they should all open up after cooking. Yes?
I have a question, it's probably stupid, but you said the saffron comes from a crocus?
Yes, the stamen.
Now, you have crocus in your yard, can you use that?
No, it's certain varieties.
Okay.
It's a certain variety, yeah. Yeah. So you think you have a gold mine there? No.
How did you cook the chorizo? I missed that.
The chorizo, I didn't demo that here. I got the raw links,
Yeah.
and I sear them off in a pan. Finish with a 425 degree oven until we get about 150. It's a pork product, so I cook to 155 internal temperature. Now, when it cools down, I just use the slices after that.
Okay.
Also, because if I use the raw meat, I'm trying to eliminate like a lot of the heat for the people that might not like it. So when I do that, as the fat drips off in the pan, some of the cayenne is remaining in the meat, but a lot of it drips away when I roast it like that with the fat. So I don't have to worry about. I have better control of the heat. Some liquid hot, some don't, but you can always add more heat if you want. You know. So.
Glad I asked.
Yeah. It's typically a hot sausage. So it's pork based with a lot of cayenne, paprika, and garlic. Yes.
With the gazpacho, Eric, did you say that the tomatoes that you used were seeded?
Yes.
So what's the most efficient way to get the seeds out if you're using fresh?
Sure. Well, the most efficient way is typically they call for what they call a concassé too. If you have a tomato, see, it's rough now because the tomatoes aren't fresh. So the best thing to do is get like the San Marzano tomatoes in a can or something like that, which I use the plum tomatoes. But if you have a nice fresh tomato, what you want to do is you boil some water, okay? And you cut an X on the blossom end, not the stem end of the tomato, a little tiny X. And then what happens is you submerge that in the boiling water for a couple, like 10 seconds, then you put in an ice bath for another 30. You'll start to peel away, so you get the skin off that way. And then after that point, you cut it down halfway through the tomato and just squeeze, and they come right out. So you're really dealing with the pulp for the most part. That's the best way to do it. Because if you want to limit the skin too, it's called concassé. You take that and it's a dice, but you have to put it in a boiling water and then shock it in ice water and then peel it. And then slice down the middle and squeeze and the seeds come out. Or if you want the seeds, you can just slice the raw tomato if it's ripe enough down the middle and on the cavity, you can just like use your finger or something like that. Yeah. Gentle squeeze. So. Yeah.
And you added some heat to the gazpacho.
Yes, I did.
What was that?
A little bit. Well, I actually have some pickled jalapenos that I made myself. I threw a couple in there. So I didn't put them in the recipe because but I didn't think it was gonna be that hot. I like the flavor. I kind of did like a subtle nuance, I thought, but if you're picking up heat, then maybe I did too much.
You leave out the secret ingredient.
Well, those are mine, so you can't really, but it works without it. You know, you can add like another jalapeno or something like that, or kind of pickle. So, yeah.
That's good.
Now, I'll show you the finished dish for this size crab. I'll also put peas in it. So what happens is you braise it up and you end up with a dish like that. That's really good. You have the mussels in the back there. Okay, try to give a little bit of everything when you taste it. But rice might be a little overdone, but the flavor's there. That's pretty much it.
It's better than in Spain.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Very well done.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Very well done.
It's good to do. The rice is a little. It's good though, right? Creamy? Okay, good. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks.